Can a California tenant dictate to a landlord how their rent payments can be applied to past due rent balances? Hi, my name is Rob Wells. I'm the Landlord Boy on TikTok and YouTube. Please feel free to like, share, and subscribe to our videos. Now, we do kind of get this situation a lot, particularly in non-payment rent cases, where a tenant might have like a running unpaid balance of rent. They never pay the full rent on time, but they make a bunch of partial payments, and then they might make one full month's worth of rent payments, and then when the landlord issues their 3-day notice for rent, they'll basically state that, X amount of balance is due, but the tenant will insist upon, hey, I paid you X amount of dollars and you're, for rent. Let's say it's $1,000, right? And let's say it's for April's rent. The tenant gives you $1,000 in April, the rent's $1,000, but then they owed you $1,000 for March and February. Okay. Landlord lists out that they credit that $1,000 to February's rent, but leaves March and April as unpaid. And then the tenant states that, hey, your notice is incorrect. Well, let me put this to bed here. So in California, there is like no actual specific rule about how tenants' payments have to be applied. Okay, many landlords have a policy of putting tenant payments to oldest charges that have accrued. So like if there's rent that's accrued, you're putting that payment towards the oldest, amounts due and moving forward into the future. Okay. And that's where there's a lot of confusion and so forth like that, because, your notice might say, you owe $1,000 for April in this case, but it was applied to February's rent a couple months down the road. Okay. Now there was a rule at one time during COVID that payments that were received basically had to be applied for that month's rent during the COVID pandemic. Okay. But those rules have expired. So generally speaking, the landlord can apply those payments being received to unpaid balances and fees and so forth that are accruing. Okay. Doesn't mean a landlord's out of the woods, because, for example, if they're inconsistent with their payments, how they're applying payments, or if they're like excessive charges like late fees that might be excessive, that type of deal, a tenant may be able to argue in court that those charges, are excessive, or there's something wrong with them, that type of deal. So every case is going to depend on a case-by-case basis. It's also going to be determined by the terms of your lease, because if your lease dictates a procedure on how to apply payments, you're going to have to follow that procedure. So landlords, if you're facing a non-payment or rent situation and you have questions about how you're applying payments and so forth, and you need some help, and you're in the Northern California area, feel free to reach out. We might be able to help out. Put your comments, questions down below. Until next time, folks, I'll talk to you then. Thanks.